poison of worldliness, and I have not taken the means to relieve it. Lord Krishna, who is the son of the king of Raja, became the son of Sachi, Lord Chaitanya, and Balaram became Nitai. The holy name delivered all those souls who were lowly and wretched. The two sinners, Jaga and Madai, are evidence of this. O Lord Krishna, son of Nanda, accompanied by the daughter of Rishabhanu, please be merciful to me now. Narottam Das says, O Lord, please do not push me away from your reddish lotus feet, for who is my beloved except for you? Yes, Kartal Mridanga. So, Hari Hari Bifale Janama Gonaino. Otherwise, it's hard for me to scroll and play Kartal. Manushya Janama Paya Radha Krishna Nabhajiya. Manushya Janama Paya Radha Krishna Nabhajiya. Janiya Shuniya Bhesha Khaino Janiya Shuniya Bhesha Khaino Golokera prema dhana Harinama Sankirtana. Ratina jani loge netai. Ratina jani loge netai. Samsara bhishanale Devanisiya jwale. Yuraite na koi no pai. Juraite na koi no pai. Rajendra Nandana Jai Sachi Suta Hoilo Se. Balarama Hoilo Nitai. Balarama Hoilo Nitai. nahi na jata chalo Hari Nama udharilo Hara Saki Jagai Madhai Tara Sakti Jagai Madhai Aha Prabhu Nanda Sutta Vrishabhanu Sutta Juta Karuna Karo He Varo Karuna Karo He Varo Narottama Dasa koi na teli ho ranga paye Narottama Dasa koi na teli ho ranga paye Toma bine ke aate amar Toma bine ke aate amar Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Gautam Das Thakur ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 8, Text 21. Tavad jitendriyo na syad. Tavad jitendriyo na syad. Vijitan yendriyah puman. Vijitan yendriyah puman. Na jayed rasanam yavad. Na jayed rasanam yavad. Jitam sarvam jite rase. Jitam sarvam jite rase. Tavad jitendriyo na syad. Vijitan yendriyah puman. Na jayed rasanam yavad. Jitam sarvam jite rase. Please repeat.
Tavad jitendriyo na syad.
Tavad jitendriyo na syad.
Vijitanyendriya puman.
Vijitanyendriya puman.
Najayed rashanam yavat.
Najayed rasanam yavat.
Tam sarvam jite rase.
Jitam sarvam jite rase.
Tavat jitendriyo nasyat.
Tavat jitendriyo nasyat.
Vijitanyendriya puman.
Vijitanyendriya puman.
Rasanam yavat.
Najayed rasanam yavat.
Sarvam jite rase.
Jitam sarvam jite rase. Matajis, anyone? Tavat jitendriyo nasyat. Vijitanyendriya puman. Najayed rasanam yavat. Jitam sarvam jite rase. Word to word meanings. Tavat, still. Jita indriyaha, one who has conquered the senses. Na, not. Syat, can be. Vijita anya indriyaha, one who has conquered all of the other senses. Puman, a human being. Najayet, cannot conquer. Rasanam, the tongue. Yavat, as long as. Jitam, conquered. Sarvam, everything. Jite, when conquered. Rase, the tongue. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. Although one may conquer all of the other senses, as long as the tongue is not conquered, it cannot be said that one has controlled his senses. However, if one is able to control the tongue, then one is understood to be in full control of all the senses. Purport. By eating, one gives energy and activity to all of the senses. And thus, if the tongue is uncontrolled, all of the senses will be dragged down to the material platform of existence. Therefore, by all means, one must control the tongue. If one fasts, then all of the other senses become weak and lose their potency. The tongue, however, becomes more greedy to taste delicious preparations. And when one finally indulges the tongue, all of the senses quickly go out of control. Therefore, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur advises that one accept Mahaprasadam, or the remnants of the Lord's food, in moderate proportion. Since the tongue's function is also to vibrate, one should vibrate the glorious holy name of the Supreme Lord and taste the ecstasy of pure Krishna consciousness. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Only by the higher taste of Krishna consciousness can one give up the deadly lower taste that keeps one imprisoned in material bondage. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that as long as one's intelligence is materially covered, one cannot understand the pleasure of Krishna consciousness. Trying to enjoy without Krishna, the living entity leaves the abode of the Supreme Lord, called Vraja Bhumi, and comes down into the material world, where he quickly loses control of his senses. One becomes particularly victimized by the tongue, belly, and genitals, which exert intolerable pressure on the conditioned soul. These desires subside, however, when one re-establishes one's blissful relationship with the Lord, who is actually the reservoir of all pleasure. One who is attached to the taste of Krishna consciousness automatically follows all of the rules and regulations of religious life due to spontaneous attraction to Vishuddha Sattva, or the mode of pure goodness. Without such spontaneous attraction, one is certainly bewildered by the pushing of the material senses. Even in the beginning stage of devotional service, called sadhana bhakti, regulatory practice, even the beginning stage of devotional service called sadhana bhakti, regulatory practice, is so powerful that it brings one to the platform of Anartha Nivritti, where one becomes free from unwanted sinful habits and gains relief from the pressure of the tongue, belly, and genitals. Thus, one is delivered from the bondage of material addiction and can no longer be cheated by the allurements of the material energy. As it is said, all that glitters is not gold. In this regard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur recommends that we consider the following song written by his father, by Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Sharirar vidyajal jodendriya tahekal jive phale vishay sagare tara madhye jivhayati lobo maya sudharmati take jeta katina samsare Krishna bara doya moy kori bhare jiva joy swaprasad anna dilo bhai Sayanamrita pao Radha Krishna gunagao preme dhako chaitanya nitai. O Lord, this material body is a lump of ignorance, and the senses are a network of paths to death. Somehow we have fallen into this ocean of material sense enjoyment, and of all of the senses, the tongue is the most voracious and uncontrollable. It is very difficult to control the tongue in this world. But you, dear Krishna, are very kind to us and have given us such nice prasadam just to control the tongue. Now we take this prasadam to our full satisfaction and glorify their Lordship Sri Sri Radha Krishna, and in love call for the help of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Supadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Pada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagar Jatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Shakhan Vitamsya. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Tava jitendriyo nasyad vichitanyendriyah puman na jayed rasanam yavad jitam sarvam jite rase. Although one may conquer all of the other senses, as long as the tongue is not conquered, it cannot be said that one has controlled his senses. However, if one is able to control the tongue, then one is understood to be in full control of all the senses. This is water? Yeah. Okay. So, continuing on the subject of Anartha Nivritti, we discussed in the previous class about how Srila Prabhupada speaks of Anartha Nivritti from two or makes 2 points regarding Anartha Nivritti. One is that he says Anartha Nivritti is sex desire. Literally, Anartha is sex desire. Literally, just put equal mark. Anartha is equal to sex desire. And he says that one becomes liberated from lust, desire to enjoy separately from Krishna, one achieves Anartha Nivritti. One achieves freedom from Anartha. Then we saw how Srila Prabhupada refers to Anartha from the platform of, sorry, 1 second. Put this under understood. Okay. From, he refers to Anartha Nivritti as being free from 6 enemies. And there are two explanations of 6 enemies. One is the mind and 5 senses. And the other is Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. So these, Ityadi, like this, 6 enemies. So he says getting liberated from these, the control of these 6 enemies, that is Anartha Nivritti. So The last time we had discussed in that purport, Prabhupada was primarily just referring to Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. Here, you see the others. You see the mind and the senses. Specifically, you see the senses. And so these 6 enemies, the mind and 5 senses. Now remember, it's very interesting that among the senses, the tongue is said to be the most voracious. It's said to be the most difficult to control. And here the reason is given here. It says that by eating, one gives energy and activity to all of the senses. If one fasts, then all the other senses become weak and lose their potency. It's very, very, very significant. But when you're fasting, your tongue does not become tired. Everything else becomes tired. You don't want to see anything. You don't feel like working. Even the most lusty person, if he's hungry, he cannot execute his lusty desire. That even that is not possible. Hearing, what will you hear? Nice music is there, but if you're hungry, what music will you hear? And what will you sing or whatever? You won't be able to engage in anything when, No, you won't. You won't be interested in something that you're generally interested in, simply because the tongue means the other senses are starved, but the tongue is not starved. The tongue becomes very strong. Another example in this regard, when people become old, right? People become old, your senses start to fail. Generally, eyes, become weak. You need glasses or whatever. Some people get glaucoma as they become old. Ears start to, you start to become a little bit hard of hearing, right? And of course, just as one enters old age, reproductive organs stop working altogether. So that is gone. Skin also becomes wrinkled and, weak. It's no longer pleasurable. It's not soft and healthy and very nice. It becomes wrinkled. But even old grandma will tell you that salt is missing in food. That tongue, up till the time of death, that works. That tongue works. That taste, it will work. Because that is the nature of the tongue. You see, all the other senses, more or less, they stop working. But this tongue won't stop. And why? The tongue, like we discussed in previous classes, we discussed how the first sense organ that even an infant uses is the tongue. You begin with the tongue and that tongue stays till death. Till death, such a strong sense. It's amazing. If without Prabhupada's books, we would never know about this, right? How would you would never think? See, actually, this is the beauty. We live with something. And we see this, but we don't see. Pashyan apina pashyati. Until it is pointed out to us from Prabhupada's books, you will not know. So this tongue is a very, very serious, problem, and it's very strong, and it has to be controlled. And one should never ever become lax with the tongue. Therefore, honoring of Krishna Prasadam is so important. Honoring of Krishna Prasadam is important, and chanting the holy name and speaking about Krishna and not speaking nonsense. This is very important. If one does these two things, one is sure to remain Krishna conscious throughout his life. Because when one is engaging the tongue always in chanting Krishna's name and not talking nonsense, when one is very particular that one will eat only foodstuffs that have been offered to Krishna, not anything and everything, then one has controlled the most powerful sense organ that is giving energy to all the other senses. It's almost like at birth, that was the only sense organ that you had, and at death, that's the only sense organ you have. From that sense organ, from birth, all the others become active, and then as we move towards death, all of it start to just, wind down, and only one becomes active, right? So it all comes back to that one position. They say many times that, when people become very old, they are almost like children. They also need care. Sometimes they are not able to even clean after they evacuate or something. They need help, just like children. They, you're in a child, it's small, but then as you grow up, you become tall and straight and standing. But then as you become old, your body starts to bend over. So this is, and in all of this, that tongue is still active. So if a devotee is very careful to not indulge the tongue, he is saved from a lot of trouble. He is saved from a lot of problem. And as disciples of Prabhupada comment, when the tongue, however, becomes greedy to taste delicious preparations, when one finally indulges the tongue, all of the senses quickly go out of control. They quickly go out of control. Because tongue eats everything, gives energy to all the other senses become uncontrolled. Which is why, fasting is considered a good thing. And as spiritual people, generally they like to fast. And fasting is encouraged. Why we have to also fast? Because, see, even though by Prabhupada's mercy, actually, Ekadasi sometimes feast is better than regular grain feast. Sometimes Ekadasi feast, you wonder, is it like this Ekadasi or something else? Still, one should practice starving the tongue. This is a very important thing. Health reasons may be there, that's okay. If one has health reasons and one has to take something, that's another thing. But in general, one should try to fast. One should try to fast. Appearance days of Supreme Lord, the different appearance days, Gaura Purnima, Janmashtami, Prabhupada Vyas Puja, all Acharya's appearance days. We should try to fast. This fasting is a very good thing. In previous times, that even when they visit holy places, they would fast. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very merciful. Even when devotees from Bengal used to come visit, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would immediately feed them Mahaprasadam. Because so honoring Mahaprasadam is also controlling of the senses. But still, when we honor Mahaprasadam, sometimes we still view that Mahaprasadam as an object of our sense gratification. And although one does not incur any sin or anything, and honoring Mahaprasadam will always help one in one's Krishna consciousness, still, when that mentality is there, that mentality affects us in other ways. That mentality has to become purified. And just by honoring Mahaprasadam, one understands philosophy better, one develops taste for chanting, one develops taste for association of devotees. All this comes just by honoring Mahaprasadam. There is one of our devotees in Atlanta. He actually this is a very nice. He's now a brahmachari, and initially he was coming to Krishna. He got a book from Mahotsav Prabhu, and he was coming to our Sunday program. So he says, I have the video on my phone, but I can't play it. This is when he was still Karmi. We had recorded a video of him saying this. It's very nice. So he says that when he first read the Nectar of Instruction, he threw it down angrily. He took the nectar and threw it like that. And he said, why, what happened? Why were you so angry when you read Nectar of Instruction? He said, because the Nectar of Instruction is saying, I have to give up meat eating, I have to give up illicit sex, I have to give up gambling, I have to give up intoxication. These are the 4 things I'm chasing in my life. And this book is telling me to give up everything. So I just threw it down angrily. And I would think this is impossible. And he said, when devotees chant Hare Krishna, and I would chant 1 round, 2 rounds, and I would think, this 16 rounds, this is impossible. How do they chant 16 rounds? It's impossible. But he said, but as I started taking prasadam, I started understanding the philosophy. As I started gradually taking prasadam, I started appreciating the devotees' association. As I continued to take more prasadam, I started developing taste for chanting the holy name, and everything became clear. This is a real factual video I have. I can jai. So this Mahaprasadam is a very, very, and I'll tell you another thing. In other sampradayas, you will not get this kind of Mahaprasad. You won't get fed like this. You go to other temples, you will get one laddu, you will get one pulihora, one donna, you will get something, that's all. Where will you get this kind of feast? unimaginable, right? It's quite amazing. And without this, how many of us would have become devotees? It's a fact, you know. Still, we have to understand that the tongue has to be controlled. The power of the tongue, that the tongue should not drag us, because the more the tongue drags us, the more the other senses will drag us, and it just is impossible to become free of anarthas. That the tongue must be under our control, and it's tempting after years and years of practice and this and that. When you're very hungry and somebody is selling something on the street, immediately the mind goes, oh, if I could just buy that and grab it. Or somebody is eating and just look at them, they are eating so nicely, they can eat anything and everything, but I can't eat anything and everything, or something like this. Or so the tongue in this way, it remains very strong. And one should remember that unless one controls the tongue, the belly is not controlled, and if the belly is not controlled, the genitals are not controlled. And this line is the line of lust. This line of lust runs up and down like this through the body. It literally forms the core of the body. What is your body? Is our body is a network of ignorance. And what is the core? Core pillar is this pillar of lust that begins from the tongue all the way down to the genitals. And when this pillar, when the pillar that is holding all the other senses becomes weakened, then all the other senses become weakened. Then automatically, see, if you attack the root, if you want to destroy a building, why grow and break windows and this and that? If you grow and break the pillars that hold the building, whole thing will collapse along with the windows. Right? The whole thing will fall. Will all collapse. Everything will collapse. You don't have to individually break a door, break window, this, that. No. Just break the pillar, break the pillars, and the whole thing will collapse. So this is the science of Krishna consciousness. That Krishna consciousness attacks the very core of our material existence, which and the entrance of that core is through the tongue. So if you put prasadam and the holy name through that tongue, then everything becomes purified. Everything becomes purified in the body. All the other senses become purified. So this is a very, very important point to understand. Therefore, in the nectar of instruction, text 1, everything became small again. Vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam, jigva vegam, udara upastha vegam, etan vegan yo vishaheta dhira, sarvam api maam prithivim sasishyat. That the first urge that Rupa Goswami says that one should control is Vacho Vegam. It begins with the tongue. He begins with the tongue, and then he says Jihva Vegam, Udara Upastha Vegam. So he gives, so there's two categories of three. You have Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha. Then you have Jihva, Udara Upastha. Notice that in both of the three categories, it's beginning with the tongue. You have Vacho and Jihva. When Vacho Vegam is not controlled, the mind cannot be controlled. You see, if one talks anything and everything, and one indulges in all kinds of talk, then the mind goes everywhere. Without that also the mind goes. But if at least one keeps his mouth shut, then the mind becomes barricaded. Because when too many thoughts are there in the mind, the tongue is like itching to say something, mutter some nonsense. But if one says, no, I will not talk about it, then after some time the mind dies down, stops thinking about it. But if you start rolling that tongue, then the mind goes on a marathon. It just goes wherever it wants to go. So and then when the mind goes wherever it wants to go, and then that desire doesn't become fulfilled, you get anger. Right? So therefore, when one chants the holy name, one has to bring the mind back to the holy name. The mind is going here and there, and the temptation is to talk in between japa. Talk, see something, read something, and when you try to read something on your phone or something when japa is going on, you are also engaging your mind's voice. You're reading and you're saying, how can you chant and hear at the same time? When you're reading something and you're chanting, you're hearing what you're reading. You're not hearing the holy name. Then the mind is automatically uncontrolled. Then how can we control anger? It becomes very difficult. So notice that the control of the urges begin with the tongue in both categories. And then already we have discussed Jikhva Vegam, Udara Upasta Vegam. Jikhva Vegam is the control of the tongue, then belly, genitals. So one who controls these six, what is he said to be? He's said to be qualified to be spiritual master and can accept disciples all over the world. Why? Because spiritual master, primarily his service is to speak. He uses his tongue. Spiritual master gives knowledge, right? And so spiritual master is one who has controlled his tongue and who is engaging his tongue in Krishna's service. The first characteristic of spiritual master. Prabhupada says, how do you know who is spiritual master? He who knows Krishna. Means he always talks about Krishna. Prabhupada gives that example that Prabhupada's spiritual master always talks about Krishna. And if somebody talks and he talks all nonsense, you know he is not spiritual master. Prabhupada gives the example also. A fool, you won't realize a fool until he opens his mouth. The moment he opens his mouth, you know this is a fool. Because once he opens his mouth, he talks all nonsense, then you know, okay, this is a fool. But spiritual master, you understand, he may just look like normal person or something, but when he opens his mouth, immediately he's talking about Krishna. And the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita flows from his mouth. Then you know, this is spiritual master. And through that tongue, the spiritual master saves the lives of all of his disciples, takes them back home, back to Godhead. What a powerful service his tongue performs, right? So this tongue, this verse of Nectar of Instruction is a very important verse. And here, it's very interesting how Prabhupada begins the purport, right? Prabhupada kind of goes into this purport in a little bit of an unexpected way. He begins by talking of the questions that Parikshit Maharaj asks in the beginning of the 6th canto. So 5th canto, end of 5th canto, Shukadev Goswami has described all the hellish planets, all these different, Kumbhipaka, Tamasira, and then Raurava, all this kind of, terrible hells, and what kind of suffering is there and this and that. And Parikshit Maharaj, obviously being a devotee, his heart becomes very pained hearing these descriptions that there are living entities who have to go through this, And at that time, Parikshit Maharaj asks a question to Shukadev Goswami, and he says that, what he says, I'll read, Prabhupada is asking, one of these questions was, why do people undergo atonement if they cannot control their senses? For instance, a thief may know perfectly well that he may be arrested for his stealing, and he may actually even see a thief arrested by the police, yet he controls to steal. Experience is gathered by hearing and seeing. One who is less intelligent gathers experience by seeing. One who is more intelligent gathers experience by hearing. When an intelligent person hears from the law books or shastra or scriptures that stealing is not good, and hears that the thief is punished when arrested, he refrains from theft. So, one second, let me just pull up. I have some notes on this. Oh, no, sorry. Okay. So, you have three classes. So, Prabhupada is saying you have three classes of intelligence, right? So, these three classes of intelligence, you have one who's most intelligent, one who's somewhat intelligent, one who's least intelligent. Most intelligent person hears from Shastra and understands and refrains from committing sinful activities. Second class, he suffers and then he learns. Okay, I've learned my mistake. I won't do it again. Third class refers to those who suffer and still don't learn. And this is the class of people that Parikshit Maharaj is asking about. His question, again as a Vaishnava, he's concerned most about the third class. Because first class, second class, he's saving himself by his own intelligence. Okay, no problem. Second class, somehow they'll come at some point of time, they'll come to their senses. But what about the third class? What are we going to do about this third class? This is Parikshit Maharaj's question to Shukadeva Goswami. And it's very important for all of us because this Kali Yuga is filled with this third class. Third class, full of these third class people. And so they undergo prayaschitta, they undergo atonement, and then they commit the same activities again. And the example Parikshit Maharaj gives over here, he compared atonement to an elephant's bathing. The elephant may take a very nice bath in the river, Kunjara Saucharavat. Kunjara Sauchavat. Sauchavat. Kunjara Sauchavat. So yeah, there it is. Kunjara, Manye Kunjara Sauchavat. That an elephant takes a very nice bath in the river, but as soon as it comes onto the bank, it throws dirt all over its body. What is then the value of its bathing? Similarly, many spiritual practitioners chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and at the same time commit many forbidden things, thinking that their chanting will counteract their offenses. Of the 10 types of offenses one can commit while chanting the holy name of the Lord, this offense is called Namno Balad Yasya Hi Papa Buddhi. That committing sinful activities on the strength of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So let's remember, it's very interesting to note here that Prabhupada doesn't talk of this third class intelligence as some people who have not come to Krishna consciousness. He's talking about those people who have come to Krishna consciousness and chanting Hare Krishna, but still committing offenses, still committing sinful activities, still attracted to activities that are not good for their Krishna consciousness. This is the class of people. And he gives the example of the certain Christians go to church, confess their sins, thinking that confessing their sins before a priest and performing some penance will relieve them from the results of their weekly sins. As soon as Saturday is over and Sunday comes, they again begin their sinful activities, expecting to be forgiven the next Saturday. This kind of prayaschitta or atonement is condemned by Parikshit Maharaj. Shukadeva Goswami, equally intelligent as befitting the spiritual master of Parikshit Maharaj, answered the king and confirmed that his statement concerning atonement was correct, that sinful activity cannot be countered by pious activity. So we are talking about liberation of anarthas, and Prabhupada is coming to the point. See, it's nice to analyze about these urges, but Prabhupada, the first thing he addresses, because the first question that one may come in his mind when he reads, I cannot control these urges. How the hell am I going to control these urges? I know I'm suffering from these urges, but still I'm too attracted to those urges. What do I do? So Prabhupada first addresses that, then he talks about the urges. Then he talks about controlling the urges. So what is that? And Prabhupada makes a very important point. Thus, real prayaschitta, atonement, is the awakening of our dormant Krishna consciousness. That what is prayaschitta? Real prayaschitta. If one is actually willing to atone, if one actually wants to change, if one actually wants to get liberated from sin, he has to become Krishna conscious. Real prayaschitta is Krishna consciousness. Everything else is just some cheating prayaschitta. And then Prabhupada says, real atonement involves coming to real knowledge, and for this there is a standard process. When one follows a regulative hygienic process, he does not fall sick. So real atonement, real prayaschitta, means following a standard process, not doing whatever one feels like doing. You have to follow a standard process. And Prabhupada says, what does that mean? When you follow a standard process, you will not fall sick. If you are following the process right, you will not fall down. If you are following the process right, your urges will be controlled. Don't think that it cannot be controlled. If you are following the process, it will be controlled. And the example that Prabhupada gives is a very nice example. He says, when one follows a regulator hygienic process, he does not fall sick. If you maintain basic hygiene, you will not fall sick. Is there the risk of falling sick? Yes, there is the risk of falling sick. But if you are hygienic, you will not fall sick. If you maintain certain basic cleanliness, you take bath, you brush your teeth every day. You brush your teeth every day and you don't eat anything and everything. If you eat 40 chocolates, then yes, you brush your teeth also, you will have a problem. But if you follow standard process, and process is given, if you follow that standard process, you will not fall sick. This is very, very important point. And so the So the point here is that we have to become trained, and this Prabhupada writes here, such a methodical life is described as tapasya. What is tapasya? Following a standard process whereby one does not fall down. This is tapasya. See, very nice definition. Actually, there are these kind of gems in the nectar of instruction, especially in nectar of instruction. I like to call them the gems of nectar of instruction. So as you are going through Prabhupada's purport, you will find these gems that you can pick out. So many definitions. Actually, I've never seen so many definitions in any one book as much as you will find in the nectar of instruction. There and there, and then just line after you will find different definitions. So Prabhupada is saying, for instance, real prayaschitta, atonement is awakening of Krishna consciousness. One definition you can put. What is prayaschitta? Awakening of Krishna consciousness. Definition. Now, what is tapasya? Methodical process for awakening of real knowledge, whereby one will not fall down. Tapasya. Definition. Such amazing definitions are found in Prabhupada's nectar of instruction purport. Now, note this is very nice. One can gradually be elevated to the standard of real knowledge or Krishna consciousness by practicing austerity, brahmacharya, celibacy, controlling the mind, controlling the senses, giving up one's possession in charity, and being avowedly truthful by keeping clean and practicing yogasanas. So to come to Krishna consciousness, a real knowledge of Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada is saying, he's saying here, you have to do yogasana. You have to be truthful. You have to give your possessions up in charity. Okay, give everything up in charity. You practice austerity, celibacy, and control the mind and control the senses. Then you can come to platform of real knowledge. If you read this, we all will do laugh, that's all. How is it possible to do this? Well, I mean, personally, I'm saying it's even though you hear, okay, even just for health purpose, if we have to do some yogasana, pranayama, it's just really difficult to just keep it going on every day. Forget about doing it for the sake of achieving real knowledge. What to speak of controlling the mind and controlling the senses, this is very hard. It's like, for this only I came to Krishna consciousness, and you're telling to come to Krishna consciousness, you have to do this. So where is the point? Then, this is a very, very important point. So we have basically 6 items here. Actually, 7 items. Austerity, celibacy, control of mind, control of senses, charity. Oh, sorry, that's actually 8. Charity of one's possessions, truthful, keeping clean. Clean means not just external, also internal cleanliness is being referred to. And practice of yogasanas. Now note the next line. However, if one is fortunate to get the association of pure devotees, he can easily surpass all the practices for controlling the mind by the mystic yoga process, simply by following the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness, refraining from illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, gambling, and by engaging in the service of the spiritual master under the direction of the engaging in the service of the Supreme Lord under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master. This easy process is recommended by Srila Rupa Goswami. Just see austerity, celibacy, control of mind, control of senses, charity of one's possession, being avowedly truthful, thinking, being clean, and practicing of yogasanas. All of this is surpassed by associating with pure devotee and following 4 regulative principles and engaging in Krishna's service by following the instructions of spiritual master. Three things. By doing these 3 things, you can surpass the other activities. The other activities, they take lifetimes to achieve. Literally lifetimes. It takes lifetimes to achieve the other 8 activities. It is not easy to do that. And here, just by associating with the pure devotee, following 4 regulative principles, and serving Krishna under the guidance of the spiritual master, one not only does the 8 surpasses, you surpass the other 8. Such a powerful process. And why is that process being recommended over here? This process will prevent fall down. This process will enable us to control the urges. This process, if we follow, one will never fall down. So remember, they are three separate things. One has to associate with pure devotees. And remember, the definition of pure devotee also includes those who are aiming towards pure devotional service. That if one is in the association of devotees who want to be pure devotees, that association also is called pure devotees, because in that association the acharyas are present. Because one is discussing about the instructions of Prabhupada is present. He is present in that association. Then one is associating with pure devotee. Following the four regulative principles, very important. And at the same time, fulfilling the instructions that have been given to us by our spiritual master and serving Krishna according to those instructions. This is a very, very important process. By doing this, one does not fall down. We are talking about Anartha Nivritti. Nivritti means becoming free. This process prevents one from fall down, and this process is being discussed for not the first class intelligence, second class intelligence, for the third class intelligence. If third class can do it, what about second class and first class? They can also do. That even third class can become free from the urges of the tongue, belly, genitals, and the speech, urges to speak, urges of the mind, urges of anger, by doing these three. And one will not become victimized. If one follows these three, one will be safe. One will always be protected. In that regard, this morning I was discussing with Prabhu. There's a very nice verse in the 11th canto that now my app is failing, so I'm not able to pull up the verse number. It's 11th canto. It says, Tatate madhava tavaka kvachit brashyanti marga tvai buddha sauhridaha tvaya vigupta vicharanti nirbhaya vinayakani kapa murdashu prabhu. O Madhava, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord of the Goddess of Fortune, if devotees completely in love with you sometimes fall from the path of devotion, they do not fall like non-devotees. Note this very point. Very nice verse that gives us lot of inspiration, lot of courage. Even if devotees completely in love with you sometimes fall from the path of devotion, they do not fall like non-devotees, for you still protect them. Thus, they fearlessly traverse the heads of their opponents and continue to progress in devotional service. A devotee doesn't have enemies, so which opponent is he talking about? We're talking about the 6 enemies, the 6 anarthas. Those enemies, even though it seems, because this fall down that this devotee had, it is happening because of these 6 enemies. These 6 enemies, somehow they took charge, some control, this, that, and the devotee fell down. And it looks, these 6 enemies are more powerful than the devotee. No, Krishna is still protecting. This devotee will fearlessly traverse the enemies, the heads of his opponents. He will step over the 6 urges by the mercy of Madhava, the goddess of fortune, who bestows that fortune upon that devotee, because that devotee is ultimately completely in love with Krishna. He doesn't want anything but Krishna, and he deeply regrets his misbehavior. And in that way, the devotee becomes free from anarthas. So this is a very nice meditation for us, that there is a process whereby we will not fall down. There is a process whereby we can become free from anarthas. And that process is summarized into 3. Association of pure devotee, following the 4 regulative principles, and serve the Lord according to the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master. Very, very important 3 things to take. This is Anartha Nivritti. This is the process of Anartha Nivritti. We can analyze the different anarthas and this and that, but the way to give it up is this. This is the only process by which one will not fall down. And even if there may be any accidental slip or this and that, because one is engaged in this process, immediately he will come back and become fixed. So in this regard, there's a very nice chart that we can discuss here, that You have, this is from, it's hard to read. Anyways, I'll try to zoom in as I'm reading through everything. Visible? Something visible? Little bit.
Yes.
So this is from Madhurya Kadambini of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Okay, so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes that there are 4 types of anarthas. What are the 4 kinds of anarthas? You have Dushkritotha, Sukritotha, Aparadotha, and Bhaktiutta. Previous sinful activity, from previous sinful activity. Anarthas that come from previous sinful activity. If anybody wants this, I can share it on WhatsApp, and then Prabhu, you can distribute it around. Maybe I'll try to see if I can do it right now. Then devotees can pull it up on their phone. Prabhu, I sent it to you. If you want, you can share it on some group or something like that. So, you have from previous sinful activity. From previous sinful activity that we have committed in the past, Purva Karma, Purva Papa Karma, right? We have things that come, ignorance, false ego, hatred, attachment, fear of death. These kind of things are described by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur as anarthas that arise from our previous sinful activities. Then you have anarthas that come from previous pious activity. This is quite interesting. Anarthas that come from punya karma, which is why devotees should not be very eager to perform pious activities, mundane pious activities, because that also leads to a type of anartha. Because mundane pious activity, basically there are 2 types of motivations, 2 kinds of problems with that. In pious activity, one either performs pious activity for the sake of not atonement, but more like for getting a better material position, better material situation. One performs pious activities, and in this way one's destination will be good. So that is a problem, because you're still trying to continue your existence in the material world. Second problem is pious activity sometimes can feel like one is trying to help the world, but that inadvertently brings out the misconception that the living entity can actually control or change things in the material world and can make other people's lives better apart from giving them Krishna consciousness. Independent of Krishna consciousness, what can you make anything better in the material world? Nothing. Nothing. You cannot make anybody's life permanently better. You can give food to him today. You can give food to him tomorrow. You can give him some medical treatment today. You can give him some medical treatment tomorrow. But if he continues in the cycle of birth and death, next life, who will give him medical treatment? Who will give him food? What is the guarantee that he won't starve in his next life? How can you guarantee these things? You cannot. But if you give them Krishna consciousness, then they are eternally saved. Today or tomorrow, they will go back to God. Because once someone begins the process of Krishna consciousness, they are guaranteed to go back to God. It is a question of time. It is a question of time. Somebody gets some prasadam, agyata sukriti, it is begun. It is an eternal thing. It is begun. Now Krishna has set his eyes on them. Because a Vaishnava set his eyes on them. Once a Vaishnava set his eyes on them, Krishna being very dear to that Vaishnava, he says, this Vaishnava has some affection for this person. Krishna is in love with that Vaishnava. And he thinks, now this Vaishnava likes this person. If I love my devotee, I have to start loving this person. So now Krishna immediately starts, okay, I'm going to start pulling this fellow towards me. And that's what Agyata Sukriti. And we were just discussing. See, again, as we are approaching Gaura Purnima, this is a very nice meditation to think that this Agyata Sukriti has basically come in unlimited ways by Lord Chaitanya's mercy. We were discussing with Prabhu today in the car. Prabhu says that every 2 years his company gives him a new car. And Prabhu uses that car to, transport, all these great Vaishnavas, Prabhupada disciples and all these different devotees. Company is performing Agyata Sukriti without even realizing it. They are performing devotional service. They are enabling it. You see, this is extraordinary mercy of Lord Chaitanya, that he it's almost like Lord Chaitanya finds an excuse to give people Krishna consciousness. What excuse can I use? Because otherwise you cannot force living entity to take Krishna consciousness. But if you have an excuse, then you can do something, no? You need an excuse to do something. And Lord Chaitanya is looking for excuses to give prema to living entities. And Vaishnavas are very expert. They're thinking, how many more excuses can we find? And they keep coming up with different excuses. And so this is this Agyata Sukriti in this Kali Yuga that is coming after Lord Krishna's disappearance and the Kali Yuga in which Lord Chaitanya has appeared. This Agyata Sukriti in this age is just practically inconceivable. Demigods cannot get as much Agyata Sukriti as much as the people in Kali Yuga of this age. It is not possible. Because where do the demigods provide vahanas for pure devotees to travel around? You know, Rolls-Royce performed Agyata Sukriti for Prabhupada by giving some car, manufacturing some car that Prabhupada is very prestigious and doing it. You see, you never know. And there's so many nice stories in this regard. I'm kind of diverting a little bit, but what to do? So there's a story, a memory of, now I'm not able to recollect all the details of this memory, but devotees once, I think this was in Brazil or or Argentina, somewhere in South America, I think. Devotees were distributing books or something, and they came to a person's house. And they open the door and they see a Mataji fully clad with Vaishnav Tilak and everything. And devotees had never visited that place before. And they were like, how are you a devotee? You know, where are you from? What is this? And she explains that once when, she was working as an air hostess. And Srila Prabhupada was traveling on a plane. Have you heard this story, bro? Puffed rice. She took that Srila Prabhupada was honoring some puffed rice, and it had become his Mahaprasada because Prabhupada was honoring. And this air hostess did a very unusual thing, which even today you cannot imagine air hostess doing. Imagine if you're honoring some Mahaprasada. So this air hostess comes and she says, "Oh, what is this?" And she literally grabs it without permission, without asking permission, which is a very rude thing, especially in the West. This is very rude to do something like this. In West, no, they have many sense of like privacy. They have huge importance to privacy in the Western world. That's why if you keep staring at people in the West, it's very offensive. But when Western people come to India, people keep staring at them, and Western people get very offended. Indians think, what is the problem? They're just looking at you, But Western people feel it's an invasion of their privacy. Why are you just looking at me like this? It's like, but I was telling our devotees, I said, see, listen, let them keep looking at you. Don't get upset by that. Just understand that it is a form of service that you are performing, that they are at least they're looking at Vaishnavas, instead of looking at something else. So it's a good thing. So don't get all alarmed by that. So in the Western world, you cannot invade other people's privacy. It's extremely rude. And she went and grabbed puffed rice from Prabhupada and put it in her mouth. And she's very nice, and she kind of continues on her job and this and that. Later, she's a full-on devotee. She becomes a full-on devotee in a place with no devotee association. Can you believe it? She later buys Prabhupada's books and everything and starts chanting and dresses herself like a devotee and everything with no devotee association. This is the power of this kind of Agyata Sukriti you cannot imagine in other ages. It's not even so much found in Shastra, right? Where do you see something here and there you will see, but it's not like this. Now you see this happening like regularly everywhere. How did we get here? Anyways, we are talking about Sukritota, right? And so even when we are trying to benefit other people, there is a contamination in thinking that we are trying to benefit. And in one sense, that actually is you are taking over one of Krishna's activities, or you're trying to imitate one of Krishna's activities. Krishna's activities is to maintain and provide for everyone. Our duty is to give Krishna consciousness to them. Krishna will maintain them, right? But when we think that we are the maintainers, then we become infected by a type of anartha, which is called sukrutota. And that is called attachment to enjoyments which arise from pious actions. Then you have aparadota. This is from offenses. So from offenses to the holy name, offenses to Vaishnavas, also seva aparad. Offenses that are committed in service, like deity worship. So there are seva aparad also that happens. So these aparads result in a type of anartha that comes. And then you have bhakti, bhakti utta. What does this puja, labha, pratishtadi, upashaka gan? That you get wealth, worship, fame, labha, puja, pratishtha. So you get all this. That when you're practicing devotional service, these things come along with devotional service, because devotional service by nature, Krishna is worshipped in some opulence. And devotees get to participate in that opulence because Krishna is worshipped opulently. You know, you look at our temples in India, Krishna is worshipped so gorgeously, so opulently. You don't find this kind of worship other places. The dresses that are, that are used, the garlands that are used, the altar decoration, just the whole scene is just so amazing. And obviously Krishna deserves to live like that. And by Krishna's mercy, devotees also live in relative, in opulence. They live comfortably. Devotees live, and of course, prasadam, what to speak. We already discussed. Opulent like anything. You can pay how much ever you want to pay. You will not get this kind of prasadam. You just won't. You cannot pay and get this. You get only that kind of prasadam in devotee association. So, through this, one may become attached to these things, which are parts of devotional service, but when taken apart from devotional service, if they are not connected with Krishna consciousness, then these things become anarthas. The worship and the opulence in Krishna's service is very good. But if you take that opulence away and you are trying to enjoy it separately, then it becomes an anartha. And previously we did not have access to that level of opulence. Now we do. Just like, say, somebody is managing a temple, get so many donations. You get so much money. Previously, and so much money is coming in. Previously, you would have not had access to that level of money. And if instead of using it in Krishna's service, we think, let me take something for myself. Thoda se idhar lenge, let me enjoy for myself or something. Then immediately one falls down. The anartha comes from practice of bhakti. It is not, means from bhakti doesn't mean that it comes from devotional service. That when devotional service is practiced, there are opulences that are part and parcel of worshipping Krishna. Where Krishna is there, master of the goddess of fortune, opulence becomes manifest. But living entity, being innately envious of Krishna, looks at all that opulence and tries to separate it from Krishna. That happens when we are in devotional service. Before we came to devotional service, we wouldn't have even thought of such a thing because we never had access to it. So that's what it means from bhakti. Right? Okay, so Anartha Nivritti. You have the different stages. So first, what is it? Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha. Then Bhajana Kriya. See, when Bhajana Kriya, when you start engaging in Bhajan only, Anarthas go away. Before that, when you come in Sadhu Sangha, your sins will go away. And Shraddha, faith comes. But until you start chanting holy name, until you start practicing Krishna consciousness, anarthas will not go. Your sins may go. You may get rid of so many sins or something like that, but anarthas will not go. Anartha Nivritti only begins in the stage of Bhajana Kriya. Right? Now, of course, generally the stage of Bhajana Kriya begins very quickly. Very quickly as one comes into association, one becomes a little serious. Immediately you start chanting. You start following, excuse me. So, in the stage of Bhajana Kriya, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that from bhakti, the eradication is partial. Partial, because one has chance to get attracted to different opulences. But if you are in good association, devotees say, no, this is for Krishna, not for you. Prabhuji, before offering, don't lust over the bhoga. When it's being offered to Krishna, don't lust over it. It's meant for Krishna. Therefore, no devotees, when before they cook, you offer obeisances to, Krishna, and you pray to Srimati Radharani. I'm engaging in devotional service. And when we are cooking also, we are not thinking this is for my tongue, we are thinking that this is for Krishna. And so devotee is overcoming that to some extent. So there is partial eradication. From previous sin, the eradication is almost complete. Almost complete. So there's actually, let me explain that. There are 5 degrees of eradication. This is just basically, it's not very important to understand the very specific differences between them. It is just the point that it's a gradual development. That's the point. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives 5 stages. You have partial, pervasive, almost complete, complete, absolute. Okay. Now remember, just in Bhajana Kriya, the moment you are beginning Bhajana Kriya with your the anarthas that come from previous sinful activities is almost complete, almost eradicated, almost complete, that eradication. Because previous sins are eradicated partially and pervasively just in the association of devotees. Just when one comes, within the association of devotees, when one develops a little Shraddha, and just one offers obeisances to Krishna or this and that, as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say, that a neophyte ringing the bell in the temple is making millions more advancement than some yogi or something like that. So a previous sin is almost, the anarthas coming from that is almost eradicated, almost complete, almost completely eradicated in the stage of Bhajana Kriya. And what is that? Ignorance, false ego, hatred, attachment, fear of death. So people more or less almost they lose, ignorance, false ego, hatred, attachment, these things in Bhajana Kriya stage, it starts to go away. Because otherwise, how will you follow 4 regulative principles? How will you chant 16 rounds? How will you come to devotee association if you are very interested in wasting time watching movies or going to something? You will come to devotee association, you have to take time away. That means your ignorance, some false ego, some attachment is it's getting very significantly gone. So then in the stage of Nishta, which is after the stage of Anartha Nivritti, what happens? Firm faith and focus in sadhana and bhajan. So one Nishta means one has become fixed. So Bhajana Kriya, one is engaging in sadhana, but it's little wavering. One goes through ups and downs in one's spiritual life. Sometimes one feels very enthusiastic. Sometimes one feels really like moded out. Sometimes one feels very hopeless. And then sometimes one doesn't have any inspiration. Prabhuji, I don't know. I'm not feeling like doing anything. It's like, he's still devotee. He's still chanting. He's like, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It is like, he's feeling like it's dragging, But then some other time, maybe in some devotee association, he becomes, oh yes, very nice, And he gets it. So when he goes to like say yatra or something like that, he becomes very enthusiastic. And then he goes through some low again. Then he goes through up. So this up and down, that devotional service is like a wave. So this roller coaster is not very enjoyable because you keep going on. One time you go over roller coaster, it's fine. Again and again, if you're going on the roller coaster, then it becomes frustrating. So before the stage of Anartha Nivritti in Bhajana Kriya, our devotional service is like that. It's like the waves of the ocean. Sometimes they're very enthusiastic, sometimes little not very enthusiastic. So Nishta is when those kind of ups and downs, those kind of disturbances start to calm down and one starts to become steady. Steady, meaning his enthusiasm is steady, his devotional service is steady, and all this is steady. So at that stage, the eradication from bhakti is complete. Why? Because see, when you are in that stage, if you are attracted to the opulences that come through devotional service, you are not fixed up. If you are attached to puja, labha, pratishtha, you cannot be fixed up. Because why? Because in devotional service, when you are performing devotional service, all these opulences are coming. And if you are constantly attracted to them, you are disturbed. But Nishta means you are not disturbed. That means that is gone. More or less gone. It's complete. Complete is the stage just before absolute. Okay? So, more or less, almost practically gone. Let's say 99.99% gone. And from previous sin also it is complete. So, previous at the stage of Nishta, one is no longer identifying himself so much with the body. Practically is not identifying himself with the body. Because if you're identifying yourself with the body, again you go through mood swings. What mood swings? Rajogun, Tamogun, Satogun. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, he says after describing, he said sometimes the mode of Satogun is prominent. Other times, and it defeats the modes of passion and ignorance. Sometimes the mode of passion becomes prominent, defeats the mode of goodness and ignorance. Sometimes ignorance becomes prominent, defeats the mode of goodness and passion. This is all going up and down. Up and down. This ups and downs in Nishta stage doesn't go. So two types of ups and downs. One that comes from previous sins, one that comes from so three modes comes from previous sins, and then the other is from devotional service itself, puja labha pratishtha. So that also more or less is complete. And all anarthas, the eradication is pervasive. What does it mean, all anarthas? Specifically, we are referring to these two, Sukritota and Aparadota. Sukritota refers to enjoyments which arise from pious actions, because pious activities are in the mode of goodness. Right? So the activities in the mode of goodness are very close to Vishuddha Sattva, which is pure goodness. And therefore, they are extremely subtle, very subtle. They are very subtle. These enjoyments that come from pious actions, like we were discussing in the first class, that things become more and more subtle. That subtle means it's more pious. That's what it means. And Sukritota is like that. And then you have Aparadota. So this Aparadota is another thing, that it's more or less pervasive, that there are offenses that come from practice of devotional service. And offenses to the holy name, which means, the 10 offenses. And then you have offenses to Vaishnavas, and you have Seva Aparad. Generally, Seva Aparad, Krishna forgives, as if devotee is very sincere, and he learns. Then when he learns his mistake, then he rectifies his behavior, Krishna forgives. But still, sometimes these offensive behaviors, they kind of crop up here and there. And these the anarthas that come from these, they are pervasively eradicated at the stage of Nishta. Okay. Now then, Ruchi is when one is engaged in bhajan. And when one in that taste, he's developed taste for the holy name. When he has developed taste for the holy name, he's completely not interested in any of the opulences that come from devotional service. Absolutely not interested. Completely liberated from that. Right? And in Ashakti, from previous sin, the eradication is absolute. Meaning, at the stage of Asakti, when one has developed deep attachment to Krishna, one has absolutely no connection with previous bodily identification. It does not exist at that stage. And then in the stage of Bhava, awakening of Prema, the eradication is almost complete. What does it mean, almost complete? Again, we are referring to Sukritota and Aparadota. It is almost complete, meaning that in that stage, we have to end. Oh, I see. I didn't realize that. Okay. No, I did something. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm going a little over time. So try to. So it was on? Okay. I don't know how it turned off. So in the stage of Bhava, where the Prema is there, the Anartha's eradication is almost complete. Basically, it is at the stage of here, number 3. All of them put together, anything remaining here and there, almost complete at the stage of Bhava. It's why? Because remember, Acharyas have given example of Bharat Maharaj, that he was in the stage of Bhava, and then what caused him to get attracted to the deer? Any thoughts? Among these different anarthas that we discussed, what could have done that? No, not that. Out of the 4, pious, Sukritota. Just see how that affected Bharat Maharaj. He didn't do it. He didn't save that deer out of desire that he wanted to enjoy that deer. But in the course of doing that, his previous anartha coming from Sukritota, Again, it's turned off. Yeah. So, that Sukritota is what took him. You see, and therefore it says eradication is almost complete. And then you have at the stage of prema, it's complete. All anarthas are gone. Absolutely no chance of fall down. Still, it says complete because Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that unless one is trained to associate with Krishna in his eternal service to Krishna, that anartha's eradication is not absolute. Because one is still serving Krishna in this material body. The material body is no longer material because the devotee has achieved that stage of Krishna consciousness. He has prema right now, and therefore that body is no longer material. But when that devotee goes back home, back to Godhead, first what he does is he goes to the Bhauma Lila in the universe where Krishna is performing his pastimes with his other associates, and over there that devotee fully engages in his service and has like there is no connection with his previous existence, because the material body is there at the stage of prema, but it's not material, it's fully spiritual. But still, the fact is it was produced from the material nature and it was produced from matter, and it doesn't affect the devotee anymore. But even that is gone when one joins Krishna's eternal pastimes. Therefore it is absolute. So this is very technical discussion of anarthas. I thought I should just touch upon it on the anartha nivritti part, and ultimately I'll just I have permission to read one last thing, and from in this regard.
This chart is
Yes.
that goes from how to support the class. Just price of it's tricky. Almost completed. All the
Tada rajastamo bhava kamalo bhadesche chete etarana viddam sitam satve prasidati. Oh, nashta prayasha abhadreshu dityam bhagavata seva bhagavati uttama shloki bhaktir bhavati naistiki.
That almost
Correct.
completed.
Yeah.
See here again is coming in the bhava also almost completed. So very interesting fact, we can see that even though it's not completely completed, but still Krishna is so merciful that he is allowing us to experience the next level.
Yeah.
Krishna can go to Ruchi, Asakti. It's not completed, still you can go further.
Yeah. Actually, Acharyas explained these stages are not like one after another. Actually, the stage that we are in refers to the stage that is prominent, but the other stages are present. Meaning, even when one begins Krishna consciousness, we were talking about some experience of nectar, and sometimes we do experience that. And even sometimes even though we have material desires, there are moments when we have felt a great wave of ecstasy and we have cried. Some of us may have had that experience. It's a little embarrassing to say, and to be very frank, we should not think ourselves to be elevated devotees. We should always remember, I still have material desires, so definitely I'm not some pure devotee experiencing Nayanam Galad Ashrudharaya, Vadanam Gadgadaruddhaya Gira. That is not the stage we are at. Let's be very clear. But yet, how are those tears coming? How does it come? How does it come when that happens? How does it come? It is a small reflection from some of the higher stages. Small reflection you get. It's like a breeze that just touches, some fragrance that just comes and goes. But that's because we need that. You see, Ruchi, Prabhupada also explains, if you don't have taste, how are you chanting 16 rounds every day? Yes. Is it possible? If there is no taste, how can we do our 16 rounds every day? Some taste is there. That taste belongs to the stage of Ruchi. It doesn't belong to this stage. And some Nishta is there, meaning he is chanting 16 rounds, following 4 regulative principles. You say devotee has become fixed up. You say devotee has become fixed up. Prabhuji, he has become fixed up. It doesn't necessarily mean he's on the stage of Nishtha, but it's a characteristic of Nishtha. So these characteristics become manifest. And these glimpses we get, these glimpses of from other stages we get, even in the stage of devotional service we are in. And these glimpses begin from the very beginning of Krishna consciousness. And Krishna gives these glimpses. He throws some nectar in, and it gives us inspiration. Okay. It gives us inspiration. Krishna is so merciful that he gives us those things from the other stages, because otherwise, if it is just Anartha Nivritti, there is no taste. If it is just you have to get liberated, there is no taste. Okay. So you get that glimpse from the other stages, but you don't say it is that stage because it is almost negligible. And so that's how it's like you can compare it to a wave, right? It's like a wave that's moving. And so when the wave is moving here one stage after another, the wave, it rises up and goes down. So you have that different stages that are going up. So even when you're progressing, that's why you have in Nishtha, it said complete, pervasive, because Nishtha is just after Anartha Nivritti, which means that stage it's crossed. Majority is now Nishtha. This is going down, but it's there. And it goes completely to the other side. That's when this Anartha Nivritti becomes just completely, absolutely gone. That's how we have to understand. It's a wave. So,
Three things which you that was that we watch away. Three things. Also, we can see the Jod Bharat case. That we hear that even the Prema stage, Sadhu Sang, that becomes the prime thing. After the Prema stage, was at the Bhava stage, but there was no Sadhu Sang.
There was no Sadhu Sang. That was definitely, that was missing. Yeah. That was that the danger our acharyas identified, because if we had Sadhu Sangha, they would have pointed it out then. And therefore, Sadhu Sangha is so important, because different devotees may be at different stages, but they can observe, and advanced devotees can observe what stage we are in, and they can point that out to us. Actually, even fall down, you can say, is not as tragic as a devotee who has behaved in a manner that other Vaishnavas are scared to correct him. That is the worst kind of fall down. He may not have apparently fallen down yet, but if he falls down, there is nobody to tell him anything. That is more dangerous than fall down, because this devotee has built a wall around him. He may be in association, so called, but he's built a wall. कोई भी उसको कुछ नहीं बोल सकता. You dare not tell him. If you tell him something, you will get burned. And still devotees tell, but after a couple of times they realize that, okay, I don't want to disturb him. At least he's doing that much.
Touch me not.
Touch me not. So if we become like that, then our position becomes most unfortunate. Very unfortunate. Because see, even if a devotee falls down, but then he goes and confesses, and then other Vaishnavas, they chastise him, they correct him. And when a devotee actually goes through some fall down, and then he comes and confesses to the Vaishnavas, there's generally some period of, where the devotee has to show that he's improving. Some corrective measures are taken. Some devotees, okay, you have to do this, Prabhu. Now come on, you have to do this. You have to go through this correction. You have to go through this. You show us every day that you show that you're rising up every morning. You're doing this. You're doing that. So devotees give some remedial measures. So you have to go through those remedial measures. And to be very frank, it's a little insulting to the ego, because your ego feels that, what, I've put myself through this embarrassing situation where I'm being babysat. But devotees are merciful. They're willing to babysit us, because they're like, no, Prabhu, you have to do this. Stop getting your ego into the way. Do you want to become, fixed up? Do you want to get over these problems? Then stop letting your ego come in the way. Do this. Fill up your sadhana chart or whatever, they'll give you something and you have to fill this all up and you have to show this devotee every week. You send some picture. Okay, Prabhu, I read so many verses. I've seen different devotees, they do different kinds of things. A devotee may tell, okay, every day after you finish your 16 rounds, I want you to send me a message that you have finished 16 rounds. Previously, you wouldn't have done that, but now you're being told to do that. A little, I'm such a big fellow, I'm so grown up, I'm this, that, why is he telling me to do this? But it's for our benefit. See, so even when a devotee falls down, he can go through some remedial process, and Vaishnavas are very merciful. When they see that devotee sincerely doing it, immediately they consider that devotee as being free. Because apichet suduracharo bhajate mam anene bhak sadhureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hi sa. So if some other devotee criticizes a devotee, this devotee will get very angry. No, why are you criticizing? You see, he's following, he's sincere, he's trying to get up. What are you thinking, Prabhu? We also may fall down any day. Don't think of that devotee like that. So in this way, devotees, they're very merciful. But if some devotee gets to a point where he is not able to be corrected, and devotees don't want to interact with him because he doesn't accept anything that devotees say, that is the most unfortunate situation. Because he's in sadhu sangha, but he doesn't have sadhu sangha. That's worse than fall down. That's a very severe type of fall down, actually. And as one advances in Krishna consciousness and one becomes senior, this danger is there so much. Big danger arises. Because when one becomes more and more senior, other devotees are scared to point out faults in this devotee. They might see something apparently also, and they don't want to say anything. And, therefore, a devotee should always have proper association, proper guidance, and he should also conduct himself in a manner that other devotees can approach him. Not that he becomes a monster, that anybody comes, bites at him, biting. Then we become monsters like this. And how that comes? Puja labha pratishtha. So this happens. One has to be very careful. And the danger is that when you become more and more senior, it becomes very dangerous. Especially when one is, in association. Say one is sent by spiritual master, go and preach in a particular location or do some program. Everybody is junior, everybody is cultivated by that devotee, and it becomes difficult. It's difficult. So, yes, bro.
Who is causing Anartha Nivritti? Is it the holy name or a
Who is causing Anartha Nivritti?
who is doing the
Who's removing the
who is removing the
Who is removing anarthas? Krishna.
holy name?
Yeah. Krishna is removing anarthas. Okay. Hridayasto hi abhadrani vidunoti suhrit satham. So that Krishna sitting in the heart, he liberates us from anarthas. But he does it in this process, through this medium. Krishna se tomar, Krishna jite paro, tomara shakati ache. Amito kangal, Krishna Krishna boli, dhai tava pache pache. So in this song, Ohe Vaishnav Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings like this, that he says, Krishna se tomar, you have Krishna. Oh Vaishnav Thakur, you have Krishna. And you can give Krishna to anybody. Krishna dite paro, you can give it to anyone who you wish. That you have that Shakti, tomara shakati ache. Amito kangal, and I am some wretched fellow, and I am running behind you. Krishna Krishna boli, chanting Krishna Krishna. Please give me your mercy. Because spiritual master gives us Krishna. And Krishna sitting in our heart, when we follow the instructions of spiritual master, chant holy name, follow regulative principles, Krishna cleanses the anarthas in our heart. Krishna does it.
And I should also say that I really enjoyed the Nectar of Instruction purport. I probably read it 100 times, but never looked at it this way with these three principles of association, 4 regs, and
Oh, it's really amazing. And it's right there in the second paragraph. I never thought to look at Nectar Instruction like this until I heard a lecture by my Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, on the preface to the Nectar of Instruction. I'm a big fan of that lecture. There is a series of lectures, the preface to the Nectar of Instruction. And I think first 2 classes or first 1 class or 2 classes, Maharaj speaks on the first line. The first line of the preface of the Nectar of Instruction, Prabhupada writes, This the Krishna consciousness movement is conducted under the direct supervision of Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. How is it conducted under direct supervision of Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada? Maharaj gives, he explains that, and it's really amazing. I just read through it, never thought. So there's so much in the nectar of instruction that we can learn.
So as a follow-up on that thought, because I've heard many devotees say, and Prabhupada also mentioned many times, that we have to aim or at least endeavor to go back to Godhead in this lifetime. Sir.
Yeah.
So by following these three things, or rather putting our entire efforts on these three things, is that possible?
You want to go back to Godhead without these three things?
No, within this lifetime.
Within this lifetime, doing these three things, of course. That's the whole point.
Because again, see,
am I missing something? I don't know.
My thought process is basically, again, it's just a train of thought that is going on. Hearing it, it feels as though, at least the way I am planning my devotional life, is that it might not be conducive to being that specific objective of going back to Godhead in this life.
Why plan your life like that?
Maybe it's a bit lax.
Why plan your life like that? You have to plan your life to go back to Godhead in this one lifetime. Okay. See, think of it like this. If we don't go back to Godhead in this lifetime, where are we going to go? It's an important thing to understand. Prabhupada said that most of his disciples would become demigods. Because I had discussed this in a class recently in Kalyan also. You see, when we are performing devotional service, simultaneously, you also get the benefit of performing so many pious activities that you cannot even imagine. For instance, in Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, it is said that every step in Navadvip is equivalent to performing 10,000 Ashwamedha Yagyas. You know what is the qualification to become Indra? 100 Ashwamedha Yagyas. In Navadvip, when every step you do, you perform equivalent of 10,000 Ashwamedha Yagyas. Can you imagine the destination of a devotee? Because he has material desire, but he is a devotee and he has performed devotional activities, several of which also bestow the equivalent of performing tremendous pious activities. He has material desire. What happens? He goes and becomes a demigod. This is why in the Bhagavatam, in the 11th canto, it is said that when demigods, when they see devotees practicing very seriously, they become scared. If you're wondering why demigods become afraid, it's because of this. Yes, because you might go and kick them out. Because you are performing devotional service, and this devotional service is so powerful that the destination is devotees. Naturally, if they have not situated themselves in Vishuddha Sattva platform, they are at least on Sattva Guna. So, Urdhvam Gachanti Sattvastha. So then you go up. They go up. And now if you become demigod, remember, lifespan is very long. And Indra only, he lives for 100 years. And each day is equal to 6 months of our time. Night is equal to 6 months of our time. So 1 year is 1 24-hour day for him. Right? Like that he is living 100 years. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, and we are talking that if you walk in Navadvip, you are performing so many more Ashwamedha Yagyas than Indra could have probably even dreamed. So maybe you are going to go higher than him. And there's a lot of positions up there. In Goloka chart, Gokul Chandra Prabhu explains that even in the coverings of the universe, there are living entities in the coverings of the universe, where the coverings are all the Ashtadhatus are there, the 8 elements. In each of those, and each is bigger than the other, 10 times bigger than the other, and the first one is bigger than the entire circumference, so the breadth of the universe, right? So you have living entities over there who are residing, who are all greater than Lord Brahma, and 10 times more. Imagine how many living entities are in this material. We cannot imagine. You may go somewhere. The thing is, the higher you go, the longer it's going to get to come back here. Brahma Bhavana Loka Punaravarti no Juna. But when Punaravarti? That's another thing. Lord Chaitanya's movement exists in Kali Yuga for 10,000 years of human calculation. Will you come back within the next 10,000 years? I don't know. I don't suggest, we should think that it's better that we not experiment with that. Some devotees speculate, well, maybe we'll go to the universe where it's happening. I said, well, great. If it happens like that, Acharyas have not given us any guarantee that it will be so. So you never know what Krishna will do. So such a great opportunity we have. We cannot blow this. You cannot do it. You just cannot. It's not worth it. If you consider the odds.
Mr. Prabhupada advised that if you miss this chance, it might be a gap of million of years.
Yeah, see? Now that makes more sense, doesn't it? Connect all of this and think. This is called vichar. When you connect these things and you understand, all in line with Prabhupada's purports, but this kind of vichar will help us become serious. Because this kind of vichar is required. Vichar is where one is evaluating and understanding. This helps us develop faith in instructions of spiritual master, instruction of Prabhupada, instruction of Shastra. Vichar is very important because vichar helps us become fixed up. Therefore, Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami, he says, no, not that, not Siddhanta Pariyachita. This is where he says it ends with Vichara Karile Chitte Pabe Chamatkar. He says if you consider, if you are interested in logic, then apply your logic to Lord Chaitanya's activities and you will become astonished. You will become very surprised. So he said, I forget how it begins, but the second line is Vichara Karile Chitte Pabe Chamatkar. So let me see if I can pull it up. Anyways, I've gone way over time. So what are we doing here? It's like Chamatkar. There is so this is the verse. So Adi Lila, chapter 8, text 15. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Doya Karaha Bichar Bichara Karile Chitte Pabe Chamatkar. If you are indeed interested in logic and argument, my dear sir, if you are interested in logic and argument, kindly apply it to the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. If you do so, you will find it to be strikingly wonderful. So this is one example of how we can understand. You walk in Navadvip, you perform equivalent of more than 10,000 Ashwamedha Yajnas. Can you imagine? It's like, and we don't know what Ashwamedha Yajna is, right? But we have to understand, to become Indra, you have to do 100. And there is a story in Mahabharata of how this king Nahusha. Anybody heard? Nahusha. There is a king named Nahusha. He had performed 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas. Anyways, long story short, Indra again does something and is, he loses his position. And this Nahusha is asked to go. And Nahusha becomes powerful. Anyways, that's a different story. But the point is, there's an example of how Nahusha, because he had performed 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas, and you will see time and again all this, Indra will go and steal the horse from the Ashwamedha Yajna. Why is he doing that? Because he doesn't want them to do that 100. 100 kar denge, then he's a challenger. But, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy is so powerful that you're just putting one step in Navadvip and you surpass that also. What is Indra able to do? But therefore, demigods tempt devotees. They tempt them with different things, material things. And they cause them to fall down. So, but the demigods can do nothing in front of the lotus feet of our acharyas. Lotus feet of our acharyas are so powerful. So if one is constantly connected to the lotus feet of our acharyas and is seeking shelter, then powerless. Aha Prabhu karo doya, deho more pada chaya. Give me the shelter of your lotus feet. Ebejas gusak tribhuvana. That glory of Prabhupada's lotus feet is worth singing in all the three worlds. That the Vedas sing his glories. Yeah. So I had one more thing to read. So let's see. Okay. This is from Chaitanya Chaitamrita, Madhya Lila 12:135. Right? E mata puradwara age pata jata shakala shodhila taha ke varni be kata. Outside the gateway of the temple, all the roads were also cleansed, and no one could tell exactly how this was done. This is Gundicha margin towards the end of the Gundicha margin chapter. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all his associates are cleaning the temple of Gundicha very extensively. Actually, the description of that is also inconceivable, how they cleaned. And before Rath Yatra happens, before Jagannath comes to Gundicha temple. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, this purport, Prabhupada more or less quotes from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. In commenting on the cleansing of the Gundicha temple, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as the world leader, was personally giving instructions on how one should receive Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, within one's cleansed and purified heart. If one wants to see Krishna seated in his heart, he must first cleanse his heart, as prescribed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Shikshashtaka, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. In this age, everyone's heart is especially unclean, as confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, Hridayantasto hi abhadrani. To wash away all dirty things accumulated within the heart, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised everyone to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. First result is one will be that the heart is cleansed. Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Similarly, Bhagavatam confirms the statement. Shrunatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayantasto hi abhadrani Vidunodi Suhrit Satam. Sri Krishna, personality of Godhead, who is Paramatma, see in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of truthful devotee, cleanses the desire of material enjoyment. So Krishna cleans. We're just asking this question. From the heart of the devotee who relishes his messages, which are themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. This is very important. Anartha Nivritti happens when a devotee relishes Krishna's message. If we have to cross the stage of mechanically performing devotional service. We have to feel some taste. And if we are not feeling taste, we should cry for that taste. We have to cry for that taste. We have to beg Krishna, I have no taste. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is crying like that. What in that verse, second verse of Shikshashtakam? Nam Nam Akari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatarpita Niyamita Smaranena Kalaha Etadrishi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrisha Mihajani Nanuragaha. I don't have taste. I don't have taste. I open Bhagavatam, I fall asleep. How am I going to cleanse my heart? What is the hope for me? The devotee should feel that feeling and he has to cry. And that is possible when one becomes humble. Because when you are puffed up, you don't feel like crying all the time. You feel I've cried enough. No, you don't feel like you've cried enough. We haven't cried enough. Because devotees like Lord Chaitanya and pure devotees, the Goswamis and all, they are never stopping. You will see Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Rupa Goswami, all of them, Narottam Das Thakur, constantly saying, I have no taste, I am so fallen, I have no taste, I have no taste. And they actually have taste. So we have to reach that platform. So we have to reach the platform where we are relishing Krishna's message. We just relish. We relish hearing classes. We relish the holy name. We relish kirtan. We relish devotional service. This we have to start relishing. Not that we are doing it out of a sense of duty. That may be there. That's okay. That's good in the beginning. Okay, I should do this. I got human life. I should do this. Okay, but later it's not because you got human life you are coming. You are thinking, what is the use of human life if I cannot do this? Better I give up my body if I cannot be in the association devotee. That stage. If I cannot serve my spiritual master, if I cannot please my spiritual master, let me die right now. To hell with everything. This is not an easy stage to achieve, but we have to start reaching that stage, and please let us remember that stage is possible. If we think that we read all these things and we think, ye mujhe nahi hoga, then we are actually covered atheists. Because we don't have faith in Shastra. What is atheist? Chaitanya Charitamrita defines atheism. What is that? What is Veda na manile? Bauddha hai, Bauddha ke Nastik. Vedashraya, Vedashraya something, Bauddha ke Adhik. Vedashraya Mayavad, I think that's Vedashraya Mayavad or Vedashraya something. Bauddha ke Adhik. And one word I'm not sure what it is. So Vedana Manila Bauddha Hoya Nastik. That Buddhists are known as atheists because they don't accept the Vedas. Vedana Manila Bauddha Hoya Nastik. Vedashraya, let me just say Mayavad because that's what it actually means. Vedashraya Mayavad, Bauddha ke Adhik. That Mayavad is even more dangerous than atheistic Buddhism because they've taken shelter of the Vedas and propounding the same covered Buddhism, impersonalism. So when you don't accept the Vedas, we are atheists. Prabhupada's books are essence of Vedas. If we don't accept Prabhupada's books, if we think that this will not happen, this will not happen to me, this cannot happen to me, then we are, in one sense, we are affected by some atheism. And that atheism will not help us. That atheism, because we don't have faith. We don't have faith, then what to do? Oh, Prabhuji, I don't know if it will happen. After hearing everything, Prabhuji, I don't know it will happen. So, kya karenge? What will you do? And you can't do anything about such a person. You have to have faith, you know. So, then Prabhupada continues. He said, if a devotee at all wants to cleanse his heart, he must chant and hear the glories of the Lord. Shri Krishna, Srinvata Swakata Krishna. This is a simple process. Krishna himself will help cleanse the heart because he is already seated there. Krishna wants to continue living within the heart, and the Lord wants to give directions, but one has to keep his heart as clean as Lord Chaitanya kept the Gundicha temple. So Krishna wants to sit in our heart and he wants to give direction. You know, we are wondering, oh, if we become senior, what will I do? The devotees are not there. Nobody is here to us out. But Krishna is seated in the heart and he wants to give us instruction. But we have to keep the heart clean. This is the point. In this way, one can become pacified and enriched in devotional service. One becomes pacified and enriched. If the heart is filled with straw, grains of sand, weeds or dust, in other words, Anya Bilasha Purna, means desires other than devotional service, which are compared to straw, grains of sand, weeds or dust, one cannot enthrone the Supreme Personality of Godhead there. The heart must be cleansed of all material motives brought about through fruitive work, speculative knowledge, the mystic yoga system, and many other forms of so-called meditation. The heart must be cleansed without ulterior motive. As Rupa Goswami says, Anyabilashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Dhyanavritam. In other words, there should not be any external motive. One should not attempt material upliftment, understanding the Supreme by speculative knowledge, fruitive activity, severe austerity and penance, and so on. In regards to severe austerity and penance and all this, one can also connect this to Rupa Goswami's Nectar of Instruction, verse 3, which is also connected to this Anartha Nivritti, where you hear, what is that? Atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha janasangasya laulyamsha shadbir bhakti. Sorry, second verse of Nectar of Instruction. No, second verse is Atyahara prayasascha. So the translation is that when you become entangled in following 6 activities, eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than required. Now remember, Nectar of Instruction verse 2 only applies after you've come to devotional service. This is an example of Bhakti Yutta, that anarthas that come when you are performing devotional service. You are eating more than necessary. You know, it's a common thing that we all face. Problem. And then collecting more funds than required. That also is there. Over endeavoring for mundane things that are difficult to obtain. Right? That after you come to devotional service, if you're over endeavoring for mundane things. What does that mean, over endeavoring for mundane things? Meaning that if the possibility of us going back home, back to Godhead in this life can get ruined, that becomes over endeavor. It is true. If you are not able to chant your rounds, if you are not able to associate with devotees, but your whatever material, some progress is there, what is the point? We have to somehow try. We have to, if we haven't found the solution yet, we have to pray to Krishna, but desire should be there. And mundane things are very difficult to obtain, or sometimes even in devotional service, we may try to perform too many Herculean tasks that are way beyond our ability to perform. That also is not good. Sometimes we face, sometimes it's just, when we were joking in our ashram or someone, some brahmachari, he was initially thinking of getting married, but then a junior brahmachari put on saffron. Now this brahmachari wants to put on saffron. It's fine, but motivation is a little, you're starting to wonder, Prabhu, why? No, actually, I'm not thinking of marriage anymore. Okay, good that you are not want to think about marriage anymore, but the motivation why you don't want to think of marriage anymore is because some other fellow puts saffron. See, these things happen within devotional service. You see, without devotional service, this thing won't happen, right? So at that time, sometimes out of prestige, sometimes you are trying to hold on to something, over endeavoring. There is, naturally we can perform devotional service but then there is some prestige factor whereby we want to show something. Dikhana, I have to show that I can do it and I am also like this. And out of that, what do they call that in Hindi? They say that, out of vain, we are garv se, just out of pride, you are doing that just to show. So this all falls category of over endeavor, because because it is not sustainable. And over endeavoring for mundane things, talking unnecessary about mundane subject matters, prajalpa, that also, talking about 100 different things that are not related to Krishna consciousness, practicing scriptural rules and regulations for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulations and whimsically just rejecting, working independently. Both are problems. Niyamagra. Overly attached to rules and regulations, has no connection to devotional service. We had once in Atlanta, one Mataji was coming, Gujarati Mataji, she was coming to our temple, and she saw the other Matajis. The other Matajis are Western Matajis, and they're just learning to wear sari and like this, and they are trying to practice devotional service. And this Mataji would go around chastising all of them how they are not wearing sari properly. Just chastising like anything, and even when they try, just constantly nitpicking all this small thing, and constantly saying that no, I am from India, I know how to wear sari, and you all should learn from me. And anyway, some little ego thing, But these kind of things, attaching to rules and regulations, or just because considering yourself to be a better devotee because you know how to wear a sari better or something like that, all these kind of mundane things, these things happen. And then rules and regulations for the sake of following. So sometimes, as especially those who are attached to following those rules and regulations, it becomes very difficult for them to give it up, even if it has no connection with devotional service. And then there are those in the Western countries, there's another, rejecting the rules and regulations, scripture, working independently. They go the other extreme, full other extreme they go. Only Prabhupada, they don't give a fig about anything else. They don't recognize Prabhupada as a representative of all the Vedas and all the Parampara system and all the predecessor acharyas. They only take what Prabhupada said, and then they debate about Prabhupada's instructions which look contradictory without reference to previous acharyas and Shastra, and then they create all this confusion. So, associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness and being greedy or mundane attachment. So these are also types of anarthas that we need to give up. And this is what one should not do these things. All these activities are against the natural growth of spontaneous love. As soon as they are present within the heart should be understood to be unclean. And here's another definition. You want definition? A material desire is explained as a desire to enjoy the material world to its fullest extent. Another definition Prabhupada gives. Material desire means enjoyment of material world to the fullest extent. In modern language, that is called economic development. An inordinate desire for economic development is considered to be like straws and grains of sand within the heart. If one is overly engaged in material activity, the heart will always remain disturbed. So devotee has to reduce some level of material activity. Some material activity is required for bodily maintenance. That's okay. But over endeavor in material activity for the sake of economic development is a sign of wanting to enjoy the material world to the fullest extent. That's Prabhupada's definition. And so one should become free from that. And I'm just skipping through because we're running out of time. Endeavor for material opulence is against the principle of devotional service. Material enjoyment includes activities such as great sacrifices for auspicious activity, charity, austerity, elevation to the higher planetary system, and even living happily in this material world. Even wanting to live happily in this material world is an anartha, because it is not possible to live happily in the material world. And modernized material benefits are like the dust of material contamination. So another problem is modernized material benefits. And as devotees who have been born in this modern atmosphere, we have become very accustomed to these modernized material benefits. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada, one of his missions was to establish Varnashram farm communities. Because Prabhupada says modernized material benefits are like the dust of material contamination. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to get rid of all that. You see, Prabhupada exhibits symptom of being a pure devotee to the extent that Prabhupada, he could stay in a wonderful place like Bhaktivedanta Manor or 55th Street Temple, where he had this on skyscraper building, 11th floor in New York City, and he had this gorgeous, quarters, very wonderful. Or you go to Juhu Temple, Prabhupada's quarters, so nice to see, wonderful quarters. Prabhupada had these opulent quarters, but still, when Prabhupada had to live in a hut in Mayapur, he lived. And when Gaur Govinda Maharaj was trying to, establish a temple literally in the middle of a jungle, and for Prabhupada, they booked a hotel. Prabhupada, no, he said, I'll stay in this hut that Gaur Govinda Maharaj. And he stayed there for 2 weeks. Prabhupada stayed. And so Prabhupada, it didn't make any difference. But for us, it makes a difference. And, we have to reach a stage where it won't make a difference. So at least we can begin by not desiring that. Okay. Let us not try to increase what is already there. And as much as possible, we should try to endeavor to practice devotional service without becoming attracted too much to these modernized material benefits. Some is there, it is there. And, we are, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is merciful. We are able to practice Krishna consciousness in spite of those things. But still, we should understand, therefore, Prabhupada is saying, when this dust is agitated by the whirlwind of fruitive activity, it overcomes the heart. So already we are in a situation where all these material comforts are present, modernized material comforts are present around us. Club that with the desire to want to expand economic development, it becomes like a tornado. Big dust storm it creates. So much dust is there, and now with fruitive activity, you are agitating everything. It all picks up. You have dust storms here? Then you can understand. So there are many desires to perform auspicious and inauspicious activities, but people do not know life after life that they are keeping their hearts unclean. One who cannot give up the desire for fruitive activity is understood to be covered by the dust of material contamination. Karmis generally think that the interaction of fruitive activities can be counteracted by another karma. This is certainly a mistaken conception. If one is deluded by such a conception, he is cheated by his own activity. And this is compared to elephant bathing. So while we are in devotional service, if we are not understanding that at the least, let me not try to become so interested in economic development, then it is Kunjara Sauchavat. Compared to that, what we had just discussed previously, Parikshit Maharaj asking that question, we are chanting Hare Krishna and this and that, but on the side we are increasing the fire of material existence. That we should not do that. Okay, so then, anyways, Prabhupada continues. It's a nice purport, but I'm going to skip most of it. Here, Prabhupada writes, by his practical example, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has shown us that all the grains of sand must be picked up thoroughly and thrown outside. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also cleansed the outside of the temple, fearing that grains of sand would again come within. In this connection, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that even though one may become free from the desire of fruitive activity, sometimes the subtle desire for fruitive activity again comes into being within the heart. One often thinks of conducting business to improve devotional activity. You see, when you come into devotional activity, again, within devotional activity, there are so many ways to make money. There are so many ways in which one can do some kind of fruitive activity, some economic development, or just one feels that one becomes temple president, then one thinks, I must have more temples under my control. So more and more it becomes mundane, and in this way, more endeavor, and then it's like, it's not very nice. So then, but the contamination is so strong that it may later develop into misunderstanding, described as kutinati, pratishtasa, fault-finding, desire for name, fame, jiva himsa, envy of other living entities, nishidacha, accepting things forbidden in Shastra, kama, desire for material gain, and puja, hankering for popularity. The word kutinati means duplicity. As an example of pratishtasa, one may attempt to imitate Haridas Thakur, living in a solitary place. One's real desire may be for name and fame. In other words, one thinks that fools will accept one to be as good as Haridas Thakur just because one lives in a solitary place. These are all material desires. A neophyte devotee is certain to be attacked by other material desires as well, namely desires for women and money. So that's the other thing. Let's note that as we are practicing devotion service, when we are in the neophyte platform, Prabhupada is saying certainly we will be attacked. But in this way, the heart is again and again filled with dirty things and becomes harder and harder, like that of a materialist. Gradually, one desires to become a reputed devotee or an avatar incarnation. So, the word jiva himsa actually means stopping the preaching of Krishna consciousness. Preaching work. Oh, Krishna, this is somehow connecting to this. Okay. So, preaching work is described as paropakar, welfare activity for others. Those who are ignorant of the benefits of devotional service must be educated by preaching. A devotee should never make compromises with non-devotees. By acting as professional guru, one may cheat and bluff the general public to gain name and fame as a wonderful mystic. But all this is considered as dust and straw and grains within the heart. In addition, one should follow the regulative principles and not desire illicit sex, in gambling, intoxicants, or meat. To give us practical instructions, Lord Chaitanya cleansed the temple twice. His second cleansing was more thorough. The idea was to throw away all stumbling blocks on the path of devotional service. He cleansed the temple with firm conviction, as is evident from using his own personal garments for cleaning. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to see personally that the temple was thoroughly cleansed to the standard of clean marble. Clean marble gives a cooling effect. Devotional service means attaining peace from all disturbances caused by material contamination. In other words, it is the process by which the mind is cooled. The mind can be peaceful and thoroughly cleansed when one no longer desires anything but devotional service. So I'm going to stop here because there's so much more. There's always more. It's unlimited. We can keep talking about it. But point is that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he cleansed the temple twice, and he cleansed it with firm conviction. In this regard, last verse I'll quote from Bhagavad Gita, which is what is that? Ashwatthamenam suviruda moolam asanga shastrena dridena chitva. How does it begin? Anyways, I forget. So Krishna explains in chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita. So he says that this tree of material existence, prasistas tasya shaka guna pravrta vishaya pravala adasya moolan anusantatani karmanu sandhini manushya loke. Then karmanu moha jita sanga dosha nirmana moha jita sanga dosha adhyatma vitya vinivritta kama Dvandvai vimukta sukha dukkha samye gacchante muda padam avyayam tat. Then no, that's not the verse. I'm not remembering the first two lines. But anyways, it comes Ashwatthamenam suviruda moolam. That this is compared to a banyan tree. Because banyan tree, if you see, it's so entangling. It's just entangling. You don't know which is the core of the tree, which is not. I mean, kind of you can identify, but a big banyan tree you cannot identify. Ashwatthamenam. And you have to cut this. Suviruda moolam. Asanga shastrena. Dridena chitva. You have to cut it with firm conviction because you cannot unentangle yourself from this material world with firm conviction. Huh? Nanto na chadir na sampratishta. Ashwatthamenam suviruda moolam asanga shastrena dridena chitva. Tata padam tat paramargitavyam. Anyways, it goes like that. So very nice verse that because it's a banyan tree, and if you are weak-hearted when you cut a banyan tree, you will never finish cutting it. You have to have firm conviction. So that firm conviction is required when cleansing the heart. Otherwise, you'll feel hopeless. So I'll stop here. Hare Krishna. It's gone way over time. Should we just end? Or questions? Really, you're all compassionate. I'm sorry I went a lot over time. What to do? Subject matter.
Anarthas are there, but it will take time.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, it's a rare opportunity, so we don't get such